Okay, hello there. This is the TJ Games channel at the moment. Thought I'd do a little piece to camera. Not really sure where this is going, so this is probably going to be heavily edited. But I wanted to record a video. I haven't recorded for a little while, partly because I've been away. And there's quite a few things on my mind. I've had a bit of time to relax and spend some family time, but also lots of reading and looking at various forums on the internet in some of my spare time. And yeah, there's some interesting things going on in the Atari scene at the moment. So I think what this video is going to be about, a little bit about my channel, a little bit about what's I'm doing with my obsession with Atari, but also I've been keeping a close eye on the forums regarding sort of various upgrades that I'm interested in, and yeah, it's also quite interesting to read how the development of devices is progressing, some of the personalities involved. There's a lot of very interesting and helpful people around on the Atari forums, and occasionally you stumble across the not so helpful people who might have strong opinions and comment on things in a rather negative way, where it's obvious other folks are really promoting our shared interest and adding a lot of value in some cases to keeping Atari retro computers and a whole range of other retro computers alive. Yes, very interesting. So, I mean, let's start with what's going on with me, the various projects I've got. So, I've got my main Atari 800 XL has had various upgrades, and I might really improve on that later. I've been focusing more on other things such as the Atari 800 restoration that I got it working. Could do with cleaning it up a bit, perhaps. But during the investigation process, it did get a full recap whether it actually needed one. I kind of feel I've done enough to that machine to merit doing a little bit more. So it's interesting how these things work out. My hand was, I feel, rather forced a little bit by a situation going on primarily regarding a different Atari upgrade, unrelated as such to the Atari 800. So let's get to the point here. I would like to first state that opinions made on my channel are my own as I'd say a consumer. I don't develop anything as such on the Atari. I purely consume. I feel, making my machines what I want them to be, keeping the machines alive is all I really give back to the Atari community, and really amusing myself in the process. So, in that position as a consumer, not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, I'm commenting from the perspective of the effect it has on myself with some of these things that have been going on. So, get to the point. I was lucky enough to grab one of the earlier revisions of the Side 3 cartridge. Have a look at it. It's 3.0, 3.1, I think it's 3.0. It works. It's got, I believe, possibly the most latest firmware, or very recent. I might have to see if it needs updating. But I've had no real problems with it whatsoever. It just works. In terms of how well that firmware works and support for it, I corresponded quite some time ago with a pretty minor bug with one game where I could prove that the image I was using was working on another device, and within no real significant time at all, the firmware was patched. And I just have a lot of respect for the levels of effort that goes in for even the most trivial things. But I understand there's been some tribulations concerning latest revisions of hardware, possibly decisions made due to unavailability of certain components, if I understand correctly. Those who show an interest in the forums and the Atari scene know exactly who the people I'm talking about. So we'll name them. We've got Candoy Sin, who developed the device. We've got Lotharek, who manufactures the device, is ultimately the shop front. Apart from some other resellers around the place, such as Retro Lemon in the UK, Brewing Academy in the US. And then you've got Flashdaz Cat, who developed the firmware. So, yeah, as I said, purely from my perspective, my understanding is that there was change in hardware. people were finding corruption and instabilities when they used the latest revision hardware with the most current firmware. And there also was a JED upgrade. Ultimately, this is where I go slightly beyond my understanding. It's sort of chip level firmware, I understand. Very low level, which the software that FlashDASCAT writes interfaces with. It was discovered that lowering the version of that was making this problem less apparent and making these devices more stable in certain cases. But I still understand it's a bit of a shit show from what I understand. If you have this latest version hardware, you're going to run into issues with certain machines. It's ultimately made the whole thing less stable than the device that I have, which solid. In a bunch of machines I've tried 2 or 3 800 XLs, a 600 XL. Haven't tried it in anything more exotic like a 1200. I don't believe it works at all in the 800 as far as I know. I think it needs the 64k minimum if I understand right, but anyway, I digress. So yes, there's a change in the hardware and it turns out it destabilized the device, and it becomes apparent that one of the 3 major people involved in this device was never actually informed of the change and given any opportunity to test, patch firmware, what have you, if that was indeed would be a solution to the problems, and hadn't received any hardware. I mean, yeah, obviously this is a kind of hobbyist affair that we're all involved in here, but considering I understand these are being shifted in a reasonable volume, then yeah, you'd expect that sort of basic collaboration, cooperation would be just key. Anyway, so the result of that, things have been said on one side which seem to make sense to me. Things have been said on another side which, well, the result of these things said on the other side is that they've been withdrawn from production. But FlashDASCAT writes his firmware for other devices such as the Incognito, which I may have mentioned I'm considering installing in my Atari 800. But I wasn't sure. I might keep it stock. Don't know. Hadn't made a decision one way or the other. But yeah, not only has product for like Side 3 been withdrawn from further sale completely, but it sounds like the Incognito potentially could be affected by this as well and be withdrawn from sale, apart from 50 units which are a gold edition. And not that I'm aware of any major hardware changes. So I was got to thinking, and yeah, these might not be around for much longer. There's these gold editions. What stock is elsewhere of the earlier editions that might have actually been tested by all involved? So this was my thinking. If I'm going to do this, do I just get them while they're around? If there is any chance that there'll be, reduction or ceasing in production of them going forward. Let's do this here then. So I will, in all transparency, Retro Lemon. So they had stock of the Incognito with the FlashDASCAT firmware. I did notice there was also a listing for the Incognito without the FlashDASCAT firmware, and was slightly concerned when I saw that first and it said out of stock, but then realised, yeah, these ones were available. And yeah, I may have mentioned to others, what's be the point of getting the one without the FlashDASCAT firmware. Okay, so I've not opened this yet. Let's some tape around there. Anything I can gently gouge into this. So I don't anticipate having to send back the unit. Right, so I've installed an Ultimate 1 megabyte in an Atari 800 XL. That was a case of, I believe I had to do some actual installing of sockets in the machine, at least one. It piggybacks on the MMU and the basic ROM, if I recall correctly, and there's a few wires to connect to the board. So yeah, I understand similarly there is going to be some soldering involved. Not particularly phased by that, but what we've got here, we've got a 6 connector there and some wires on the other side that need soldering in. So that's the first thing we come across in this box. So yeah, we've got another oh, that's interesting. So yeah, that looks like that's going to go in and replace a chip. potentially. Maybe that's the same, maybe that's the MMU or equivalent. And here we go. I think, yes, that is the older revision as far as I know. Incognito. Gonna need a compact flash card. I think I've got one, otherwise Amazon could be calling. That's the other side of the board. So again, Candleosin, Lotharek. Interesting. spiflash.org. I've tried going to that website a few times. Not a lot there. And Candle and Lotharek. All nicely etched onto the board. Candleosin. And then FJC for the phone man. One of the major things I like about the Side 3 cart and the Ultimate 1 Megabyte is the simplicity, and it just works. The interface, it looks nice, it works, it's smooth. It's had a lot of thought gone into it. It's got sort of multiple layers added to, yeah. Okay, but it's the hardware that makes it work, isn't it? Actually, no, I'm just reading properly. There is a bit. I'm being unfair. There's a bit more etched in this board. So let's start again. On the one side, we've got Incognito, designed by Sebastian Barkowitz, Candleosin, made in Poland, produced by Lotharek. Lotharek Zemliskor. I'm sorry for butchering your name, honestly. But then, yes, etched onto the other side, it does say, I would like to thank the following people for their support and hard work on this project. Beta testers: Chris Luckley, J.L. Bray, Jonathan Taylor, Ken Schlaffer, Mike Cartridge, Robert Miller, Roy Dean, Stephen Anderson. But then, and last but not least, for all his hard work on PBI driver, Jonathan Halliday. I owe you, John. Without your hard work, some of unique features would not be present. Okay, reading that without my reading glasses. But okay, yeah, there's fair credit there. Okay, so I can see the header. I would believe where that wire goes in, and this here. So this card, to the best of my understanding, will go into one of the expansion bays. It will basically cover all the memory. So I can take out all of the existing memory modules. And I need to check what else I need to remove. Is it everything? Certainly the OS ROM board, I think, will be replaced. Interestingly, that was one of the problems, was it not, with my 800, the OS ROM? Therefore, another avenue to successfully fixing that could have been just putting this in instead. But there would be several other things that, too many variables installing Incognito while you have existing issues. And there was the problem with, what did I resolder the socket for? Is that the GTIA socket potentially? Or no, it was the pokey. I'm getting old and I can't remember things. I apologise. It will be captioned underneath what I did precisely to the 800XL, as well as changing the OS ROM to make it work. But it was a bit of a mission. Okay, so there we go. These are my canned thoughts. My hand was forced. Not really upset about that because I'm going to enjoy installing it. My hand was forced to buy an Incognito. I think I have the best current version of the Incognito that you can source. Maybe not for much longer, but it's a tried and tested solution. I know, basically, I think I can install this successfully. However, I know there are people that have done this install. One chap that I was speaking to on Atari Age, Beeblebrox, I believe it was, who offered some further assistance if I run into trouble, maybe, lending me components to swap in and out, but ultimately didn't need to do it in the end. But thank you very much for that. But Yuso also mentioned you've done several successful Incognito installs, and I believe If I look back in my messages, you pointed me in the right direction for some good documentation. But of course, I know I think FJC also has some good videos on this topic. So yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that. That's another one thing that I'm going to be doing on my channel when I can squeeze the time in. What else am I doing? Well, I had a little side project some time back, a different Atari that I was looking at. So pause for a second, let me see if I've got it to hand. Yes, indeed. I need to get a bit more organised around here, but yeah, I have at least got different projects packed away together when I've kind of stalled on them. In this box here, a machine that I acquired from eBay some time ago, I have this Atari 7800. So I did some things with this. This is kind of timely because obviously, you know, the state of Atari at the moment, there's a lot of sort of active stuff going on in sort of development of upgrades for the older Ataris, but what is now Atari themselves, Atari as they have now become, seem to be focusing on modern devices that play the old Atari games faithfully, but can be connected into modern peripherals, televisions, what have you, and offer sort of superior graphics than you know, what we have to do with the retro machine, doing stuff like installing digital devices or upgrades to the video, upscaling, all this sort of shenanigans, just to use the original hardware, which I'm kind of sucked into, and is my preference because I don't own any of these other devices. But interesting nevertheless to watch what's going on. There was a 2600 Plus that came out, which, you know, looked kind of interesting. I believe it could play original cartridges as well as installed games, if I recall, and also played 7800 games. But it was ultimately looked very much like the classic 2600, maybe a little bit scaled down in size. But now I understand they've released the 7800 Plus, which kind of feels like much of the same to me. However, I think they've got different installed games offerings, and looks like the 7800. But also, no, that's it really. It just looks like the 7800, and yeah, you can play the cartridges and what have you. But yeah, so this is a real one. So what have I done to this? Well, I installed a relatively cheap composite video mod to begin with because I just wanted to get using it as quickly as possible. Didn't really want to run it through an RF telly. So not the best graphics in the world, but, you know, watchable. Nothing really wrong with it. So that's that. So not to hand, but I have a couple of other things. Sorry, peripherals. There's a little device there that I picked up. So the 7800 had a annoying Atari Pro Line joystick, which I've got one around. I'll try and bring it on and edit it in. They were hand killers. They were horrible. They hurt. We had one as a spare joystick, stupidly, that we bought for our 800XL, but it was horrible. But supported 2 buttons, whereas you put a standard joystick in, you could play all the 2600 games, several 7800 games, but there were a few games that needed dual buttons on the joystick. Yeah, I didn't want to use Pro Line, couldn't use the old Atari joystick, so managed to get this adapter, and what this does is convert the unique pin-out signalling used for the dual button that was only supported by either the Atari Pro Line or there was a pad, I can't remember what it's called, the 700, but they were expensive, didn't really want to buy one when I could get quite a cheap adapter and use these, which are Sega Mega Drive controllers, which have the same connector, serial type joystick connector there, but a slightly different pin out for the dual button, but this converts it. So that's how I play on my 7800. So also somewhere else I obtained, again I'll find it later, a Concerto cartridge, which at the time was, I believe, the sort of best known available multi-cart SD card adapter for the 7800. But this one was a little bit special because it included the sort of semi-experimental hokey chip, the extra position on the board for a hokey, which is ultimately a cut-down version of the pokey, because there were a handful of cartridges released for the Atari 7800 which had more superior sound. The reason it needed it was because the 7800 pretty much had the same sound as the 2600, which was inferior to what had already been released on the 8-bit computer range. Much better sound chip in there. So it was a bit of a step backwards on sound, and a step forward on graphics potentially. Yeah, so rather ill-fated in that respect. It wasn't a perfect machine, and it came out the same year as the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's a shame, Atari. It didn't go well, did it? But a rather interesting and quirky machine. There's a number of game titles that you won't really find anywhere else. So yeah, I wanted to own one. It was the last Atari machine, last console released of the 8-bit era, really, to the best of my knowledge. So yeah, I wanted to have one. And yeah, so what this Concerto with the Hokey chip installed claims to be able to do is emulate the Pokey for the games that required it, and one of them that springs to mind was Ball Blazer. So yeah, ordered this and connected it up and tried to play it. I might interject with some video evidence here. Yeah, there was different sound, definitely. Wasn't quite right. There was something not quite right about it. The timing was off. It was just weird. But because I hadn't played Ball Blazer much before back in the day, it's like, yeah, this is a weird tune, but it doesn't quite sound right. It's odd. And there were some glitches as well in the sound, so I was convinced there was something wrong. So I communicated with chap who created this, Atari. Had some back and forth about probably almost a year ago now, and he kindly sent me both a replacement Hokey, I believe, and also a replacement board eventually, as we were trying to troubleshoot this problem. But it didn't go away. During the troubleshooting, I actually spent, I can't remember, like 20 or 30 quid, I think it was, on a Ball Blazer cartridge just to try it and hear what it would sound like. So Ball Blazer, it's got a Pokey inside that cartridge. I think back in the day, a lot of them got stolen out, and yeah, it sounded completely different. It sounded good. So I definitely had a problem, but I kind of had a lot going on last year and run out of time looking at this. Yeah, it got put in the box and it was one for later. But in the time away I had recently, yeah, I remembered this and I think it triggered me when I read something about the 7800. So yeah, I communicated again, and yeah, so let's have a look at this for a moment. Just rewind. Of course, I've got a mod chip in here, and it's rather crudely taped on to stay inside. But that is an audio video mod, which allows me to plug it through to the composite and mono audio connectors there. So yeah, the last thing I have been informed of is potentially this audio mod could be the culprit. This is the first time I've had a look in this machine for quite some time. So if you have a look at the back there, you can see there's your power input, and we've got a couple of holes there, haven't we? Yeah, I've desoldered some components. Now I will have those around in a box, I am sure. But it very much looks like I've removed the RF modulator. But it's going to be very difficult to test this stock without that mod. Potentially I can just take the audio portion off. So yeah, I'm prepared to try that. That is another little project then. And following that, maybe some videos of some of the interesting game titles that I've had only really a brief look at on the 7800, because I was, as it seems to be the case, more focused on hardware issues than I was about the gaming. Which is kind of ironic, because this is the TJ Games channel. Which brings me nicely round to the fact that, yeah, I've been thinking for a while, I think I need a rebrand on my channel. TJ Games is not really what I do. When I started this out, it was a bit of a random YouTube channel. I had some Atari gaming, I also had a bit of Fortnite here, but I removed those videos because it became more Atari focused, and original few videos were on playing games. But yeah, I seem to descend into hardware and modifications and general tinkering more often than not, so I feel I need a new name. I've got a couple of ideas, but yeah, this may be one of the last videos that you'll see under the banner of the TJ Games channel. I think that's pretty much the gist of what I'm going to be doing in the near future. So some 800 stuff, some 7800 stuff. However, there may be on the side a little bit of tinkering with just general gameplay with the Atari random game generator, and maybe a bit of ST stuff, as I feel that's a bit of an open project as well. Playing around with the sidecar, but I think my ST itself could benefit from a bit more RAM to be able to get the full benefit from that device. And loads of other things coming to mind. There's also the FujiNet, which I feel I haven't given a fair crack of the whip in previous videos. I had some networking issues, I think, the culprit. Maybe my Wi-Fi is a bit too complex. It's a working theory that I've got some basic access points around where I can try and create another little network just for that, and see if it gets any better. If that doesn't, then I might have to correspond with some experts on that. There we go. It's not really a gaming channel anymore, is it? So what should we call ourselves? Let's think. So I thought of TJ Atari. It's a bit dull. TJ Retro leaves it open for non-Atari related things, but I don't know. It's been a real head scratcher. I've got used to saying TJ quite a lot as well. What about TJ Atarian? TJ Atarian. I think that's the best I've come up with at the moment. Let us see. But yeah, I don't really want to be rebranding every week, so yeah, we'll give it some thought. But yeah, anyway, this has been the TJ Games channel, and thank you for watching. See you on the next video. As is often the case with things like this, after recording video, something else has happened. So kind of hot off the press, what I referred to earlier, some of the tribulations related to projects involving Candle, Flash Jazz Cat and Lotharek. I think I did mention at one point that yeah, the SPI Flash website, which I believe is Candle's, never seemed to have much information on there. So Lotharek has a web presence. Flash Jazz Cat certainly has a web presence and is very collaborative within that. But yeah, I hadn't really seen much from Candle. Seems with everything that's happened, there is a post on Atari Age, my hardware project, where just to summarise, work designed so far and still holds intellectual property rights to can now be obtained via PCBWay. Project files are there where you can order assembled or do it yourself. But these are, SMD parts, very small. I certainly don't think I'd be attempting that myself. But ultimately, yeah, it's a new channel, and yeah, it seems there is a solution. From what I can tell, just skim reading this, some of Candle's products will be able to be more mass produced by, a company that I've heard of. Sounds like there's more rosy horizons. So did I actually jump the gun by going for my Incognito from Retro Lemon? Let me just follow the link, have a look. Yeah, shared projects, there we go. Side 3.3 cartridge, various other things, USB keyboard interface for Pokey, and Incognito 1.1. Well, there you go. PCBWay donate 10% cost to the author. So yeah, if I understand it correctly, you're just buying the hardware. So I'm assuming, did they come with the firmware at all? Would it be Flash Jazz Cat's firmware, or would you have to obtain that directly from Flash Jazz Cat and pay him for it directly, which I think is absolutely the right thing to do there. Yeah, very interesting. Well, I don't think that's going to be much dissimilar to the unit I've got, so yeah, I'm not upset by that at all. There we go. Tag that onto the end of my video, I think. But yeah, I think there's certainly potential new projects on horizon to fill up my time, could come from the endeavours that could go on through this channel. So, yep, okay, that's it. Thank you very much. This is TJ on the TJ Games, TJ Atarian, TJ Something channel, and have a great evening.